After owning the Pico 4 for just over a month now, it's fair to say that it's an amazing headset. It has so many awesome features that we've wanted for standalone VR for ages, but it does have one pretty big problem. Welcome back to the VRC for your slice of VR goodness. Let's get right into it and let's talk Pico 4. For anyone who doesn't know, the Pico 4 is a standalone VR headset from ByteDance, the company behind TikTok. Right, have I lost anyone? You still here? Okay. By standalone, we mean that it doesn't require a powerful PC or a PlayStation to use it. You just buy it, turn it on, put it on your noggin and start using it. The headset costs $379.99 for the version with 128 gigs of storage and $449.99 for the one with 256 gigs. You may have noticed that the prices are very similar to that other standalone VR headset, the record-breaking, ultra-successful Meta Quest 2. And of course that means that throughout this video, quite unavoidably, the Pico 4 is going to be directly compared to the Meta juggernaut, because after all, you may need to decide which one to buy, or might already own a Quest 2 and are interested to know if it's worth having a Pico as well. In this video, I'll tell you all about the good stuff, but also a few things that aren't so great. But let's start with the specs. The Pico 4 is powered by the same Snapdragon XR2 chipset that you'll find in the Quest 2 and Pico's previous headset, the Quest 2 clone, known as the Pico Neo 3. Storage, as mentioned, is either 128 gigs or 256 gigs, depending on which you buy. It has 8 gigabytes of RAM, 2 more than the Quest 2, and the LCD panels behind the lenses have a resolution of 2160 by 2160 per eye. Compare that to 1832 by 1920 per eye of the Quest 2. Pico say that it has a 4K plus resolution. The panel runs at 90Hz, which is lower than the 120Hz that the Quest 2 is capable of. This means that it can display 90 images every second. Higher Hertz makes for a smoother VR experience, and whilst most feel that 90Hz is perfectly adequate, there are a few that really do feel the benefit of 120Hz, whether that's because it helps them with motion sickness or it makes them just more pro at Beat Saber. However, the Quest wasn't always capable of 120Hz and gained that ability through updates. So who knows, the Pico 4 may also be capable of 120Hz sometime in the future. But as of this review, it is not. The Pico 4 has USB, Bluetooth 5.1 and Wi-Fi 6 connectivity, all of which work as you would expect. It looks much nicer than most VR headsets we've seen before. Of course, looks are subjective, but to me it looks more like the futuristic ones we see in the Ready Player One movie. Although the headsets in Ready Player One use an elasticated strap. I suppose it's just much more cinematic that way. Overall, it's a very premium looking device and I'm a big fan of the glossy black front, although it has picked up a few fingerprints. One of the new features on the Pico 4 are what we call pancake lenses. Lenses that fold light and mean that they can be really close to the LCD panels that display the image. Lenses are really important for VR because they are what turn the flat image into the amazing immersive experience VR offers. The pancake lenses in the Pico 4 are amazing. Compared to the Fresnel lenses used in the Quest 2 and most other VR headsets, they are so much clearer due to the larger sweet spot. A large sweet spot means a lens has a larger area where if you look through it, you get a clear image. A small sweet spot means that there's more area where you get a blurry image. People often have trouble getting a perfectly clear image on the Quest 2 because they don't realise they have to adjust everything perfectly to be looking through the sweet spot of the lenses. On the Pico 4, the larger sweet spot means it's much easier. But the larger sweet spot isn't really the best thing about the pancake lenses. Because they don't have to be so far away from the LCD panel, it means the entire headset can be much shallower. It also means the battery can be kept in the back of the strap instead of the main unit at the front. This means that unlike the Quest 2, the Pico 4 does not feel so front heavy and in stock form is a much more comfortable experience than the stock Quest 2, meaning it's much more easier to play in VR for longer. Another great feature of the Pico 4, and again something that people have been wanting for a long while, is proper IPD adjustment. The Pico 4 has 2 LCD screens that can move with the lenses, which means the headset can easily adapt to people whose eyes are further apart than normal or closer together than normal. Instead of the clicky adjustment on the Quest 2 or the slider on the Quest 1, the Pico 4 has a motorized IPD slider which can be adjusted in the settings whilst you're still in VR, meaning it's really easy to get the perfect setting. Most of the online specs say that the Pico 4 has an IPD range of 62 to 72mm, but it can go down to 58mm. You just have to accept a little warning that if you go lower than 62, then the lenses might pinch your nose. It's just one of the many amazing features the Pico 4 gives us. Remember that some people simply can't actually use a Quest 2 since their IPD either falls outside the IPD range allowed by the Quest 2, or they have IPDs in between the 3 preset settings, meaning that they can never get a perfectly in focus image. Another cool feature of the Pico 4 is the brilliant field of view. That is how much of the VR world you can see at any one time. A low field of view means it's like looking through binoculars. High field of view means it's a really immersive experience. You can tell the difference between the FOV of the two headsets when moving from the Quest 2 to the Pico 4. With its larger FOV, there is a worry that you're more likely to see the pixels, but luckily the higher resolution screen helps out here. Personally, I feel the perceived resolution of the Pico 4 is about equal to the Quest 2. There's definitely no screen door effect that I can see. Plus, the pancake lenses don't have all the other issues associated with old-style Fresnel lenses. VR in the Pico 4 is just a really nice experience. It feels great on your head, it's a treat for your eyes, and the controller tracking is also very good. I actually thought it was terrible at first because I tried the Manny Pacquiao boxing game, and wow, it's terrible. Luckily, it's the game's hand tracking that's really bad and nothing to do with the Pico. Until it gets fixed though, stay away from that game. Sorry, Manny. To me, tracking on the Pico 4 seems just as good as the Quest 2, which of course has some of the best inside-out controller tracking, meaning cameras on the headset track the controllers by tracking infrared lights on the controllers. On the Pico 4, these infrared lights are on a strip of plastic that cover your fingers, sort of like the handle of a sword. Actually, maybe it just covers your thumb. Other VR controllers tend to use rings, so what does this difference in infrared layout mean? People have said that it's much easier to use the Pico 4 controllers when shooting a pistol two-handed. A friend of mine who is amazing at rhythm games has said that unfortunately the Pico 4 controllers make it harder for him to hold the controllers the way he prefers by gripping through the rings. So Beat Saber experts, beware. But the good news is that he also said the controller tracking is perfectly fine, even for someone with his Jedi-like reflexes. It's a shame they don't stand up like the Quest 2 controllers do, but I do like the way they sort of interlock with each other, and the battery door is pretty cool too. Though it is totally style over substance. Another really nice feature of the Pico 4 is the colour pass-through camera. A double tap on the side of the headset switches the view inside from VR to the real world in glorious colour from the single RGB camera on the front of the headset. It's not 3D, but it's very usable, and I found myself very easily able to walk around the house with the headset still on my head. It's a really nice feature and will be great for future AR experiences, although it can be a bit kind of wobbly sometimes. So apart from the refresh rate, literally everything about the Pico 4 seems to be an improvement over the Quest 2. Well, not quite. There is that big major problem that I haven't mentioned yet, but before I do, let's talk about a few other negatives, because there are some. Sound isn't really a negative, but it's not a plus either. Just like the Quest 2, it's piped into your ears via the straps. It's fine, about as good as the Quest 2, maybe a little better. There's no physical headphone jack for headphones, so it's Bluetooth only, but latency seems fine. At the moment, hand tracking definitely falls short compared to the Quest 2. I don't really play any hand track games, but just using it in the menu is nowhere near as fluid as it is on the Quest 2. Also, despite having a much larger battery than the Quest 2, the Pico 4 actually runs out of juice a lot faster. I feel like I'm running out of battery after about 1.5 hours on the Pico, whereas I'm getting over 2 hours on the Quest. Hopefully this might improve in future updates. But this leads us to another issue. Yes, that stock strap on the Quest 2 is terrible, but it's also removable since there's no battery inside it. This means that there's a whole host of other strap options for the Quest 2, including many straps with batteries, which will more than double the life of the Quest 2. The Pico 4 isn't totally out of luck here, but it is reduced to having to use DIY solutions like the old power bank in the pocket, or this very cool solution from amvr. But this lack of customizability affects more than just battery life. Personally, I find the Pico 4 strap to be extremely comfortable, but some won't, and sadly they won't be able to do anything about it. There's also another comfort issue, and that's caused by the stock facial interface. That's the bit that stops all the light getting into your VR. If you do want all the light to stay out of your headset, you have to have it on quite tight. Of course, this can depend on your face shape, and it's not an issue for me, but some people have said they have to have the Pico really tight to stop the light getting in. I do still have an issue with the stock interface though. Remember that great field of view? Well, to get it, you have to have the lenses as close to your face as possible, which means you have to push the headset into your face by tightening the strap. After a while, it does hurt a little and it leaves a little interface-shaped pattern on my face. I can loosen it, but then the field of view reverts back to being more like the Quest 2. Also, as with the Quest 2, the material of the stock interface means that it won't be the best for fitness games, but luckily, unlike the strap, it's easily removable, so hopefully VR Cover or some other accessory people will be coming up with a replacement very soon. By the way, the facial interface is attached using magnets, which seem strong enough to keep it firmly in place, but also means it's very easily replaced without the fear of eventually breaking some plastic clips. The stock interface is also large enough that I can wear my glasses without the included glasses spacer. However, if you do wear glasses, then I highly recommend getting some lens inserts like these ones from VRCauldron. There's actually some magnets already inside the pancake lens housings on the Pico 4, so these inserts from VRCauldron simply stick to them without any other installation requirements. They're pretty cool. Let me know in the comments below if you want to see a full review of those. Let me quickly tell you about VR Wave, who have sponsored this video. VR Wave make lens inserts for the Quest 2 and the Pico 3 and 4, as well as other accessories. Their lenses slot into the headset easily using magnets and come with a really nice carry case. As well as their excellent lenses, they also sell facial interfaces to make your Quest 2 more comfortable. Personally, as a glasses wearer, I cannot do without lens inserts. I don't want to wear my glasses in the headset because not only do they steam up really fast, they could also scratch the lenses of the headset and totally ruin it. If you ever wondered why VR was blurry for you and you're a glasses wearer, then there's a good chance it's because you need these lens inserts. And VR Wave make great ones. I'll leave a link to their website in the description. Now back to the video. Don't worry, we're nearly at that big problem, but before that, a few more niggly negatives. The first is that the controllers do take 2 AA batteries, unlike the single AA that the Quest 2 controllers need. Not really an issue, but it is nice to use fewer batteries. Good news though, the controllers seem to be lasting a very long time. I still haven't had to change the batteries. Some people have reported a problem with Mura, that's some visual abnormalities when looking at an area of the same colour. I personally haven't noticed it, but I know some people have and they really don't like it. Another thing you might take issue with is the fact that it's made by the people behind TikTok, meaning you'll be worried that the Chinese government are watching your progress at 11 table tennis just in case you get good enough to beat them at the Olympics. Honestly, if that's a deal breaker for you, then to each their own. People have similar misgivings when it comes to Meta Facebook owning the Quest, but I'm not really sure what you're getting up to that you don't want Meta or ByteDance to see. I'd ask you to let me know in the comments if that bothers you, but I know I won't need to. So what's the big issue I keep talking about? Well, it doesn't matter how good a console is, they will always get judged by their games. And whilst the Pico 4 library is growing all the time, it just can't compare with the 3+ years the Oculus Quest and later Meta Quest 2 has had in building its library. Some Quest owners have loads of games that they don't want to leave behind if they were to upgrade to the admittedly superior Pico 4. Not only this, they don't want to miss out on games that will never be available for the Pico. One of the biggest games on Quest, and in VR as a whole, is Beat Saber. Sadly, as of writing, this is not available on the Pico 4. There are also some games that work on the Pico 3, but not the Pico 4. So when it comes to choosing a VR headset this Christmas, you really need to take the game library into account. Are your friends getting Quest 2s? Are you going to get FOMO if they're playing a game that you can't play? If you pay that little bit more for a Quest 2, you're losing a lot when it comes to hardware, but you're gaining a hell of a lot when it comes to software. Not only games, but the Quest 2 is a much more streamlined experience. Think Apple compared to Android a few years back. The Pico 4 software isn't bad, it's just not quite as nice. For example, the Quest 2 treats you with the amazing first steps and first encounters to get you used to all the controls. There's nothing that amazing on the Pico. Also, there's a lot of apps missing on the Pico, for example, the YouTube app. One of the cool things about the Quest 2 is the ability to enjoy some awesome 3D VR 180 experiences, and sadly, these just don't work properly in the web app on the Pico. Hopefully there will be a YouTube app coming soon, but until then, we have to make do with a second-rate solution. Now, the Oculus exclusives aren't totally off limits to Pico 4 owners. If you happen to own a VR-ready PC, then you can use Virtual Desktop to play Oculus games that aren't available on the Pico. Of course, this means you can play all the Steam PC VR games too. And the Pico 4 is an incredibly capable PC VR headset with one caveat: you need a good Wi-Fi connection. If you do, then wireless PC VR is fantastic. Sadly, unlike ByteDance's previous headset, the Pico Neo 3 Link, there is no longer a dedicated DisplayPort connection. This was an amazing feature on the Pico 3 Link, and that became my go-to headset for PC VR. It was just so much better than the Quest 2 with USB-C link cable. To get similar results with the Pico 4 using Wi-Fi, you really do need a nigh-on perfect connection. However, if your Wi-Fi isn't the best, the PC VR experience on the Pico 4 is still pretty good, just not as good as the older model, which is a shame. So as we enter the summing up part of the review, and I'm sure I've forgotten a lot, the question of should you get the Pico 4 has to be asked. I am lucky enough to have both a Quest 2 and a Pico 4, and whenever I want to do something that both headsets do, it's an easy decision. I use the Pico 4. The hardware and quality of life features are massively superior to those on the Quest 2. If you already own a Quest 2 and would keep it if you bought a Pico 4, then I'd say go for it. You still own all your games, so you can just use the Quest 2 when you want to play something that isn't on the Pico. The hardest decision is what to do with your next purchase would be your first VR headset. Which one do you get? You have to take into account that although the Quest 2 costs anywhere from £350 to £500 depending on sales, you probably have to spend at least another £50 on accessories to make it comfortable. On the surface, the Pico 4 wins easily, but rarely are these things that simple, and this is no exception. If you have a good PC with Wi-Fi, then that will open up the PC VR and Oculus game library. Then I say, go for the Pico. If you don't have a PC, then let the games and your friends guide you. Got no friends? Don't care about Oculus exclusives? Then go for the Pico. But if you really need the games that aren't on the Pico, there's only really one choice, providing your IPD is compatible with the Quest, of course. Maybe you can live by the mantra of Cypher from The Matrix.
Ignorance is bliss.
Apart from the fact that you made it to the end of the review, so you do know about all the amazing features of the Pico 4. You do get used to the low FOV of the Quest 2, and you can upgrade most things that you don't like about it. It's a very capable headset. I've just been spoiled by all the things that the Pico 4 can do. It's like the new kid who puts on the best party ever, but only a few people go. And only you are going to know which party you want to go to. So let us know in the comments, which party are you going to go to? Or rather, would you buy a Pico 4 or would you buy a Quest 2? Thanks again for getting this far. If you have any questions, please do ask below. Like I said, I will have definitely forgotten to mention something. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button though if you got something from this video. And if you think you might watch any of my other future videos, then feel free to subscribe. It is free. Until next time, see ya.